Yo guys, this is Reinhardt, and a lot of people ask me about the Unholy Rotation, and I honestly hate the word rotation. So in this video I'm actually going to be talking about Unholy Rune Management, the correct way to actually apply as much pressure as you possibly can. And this is going to be a pretty long and tedious guide with a lot of nerd analyzing, but it's going to be a video that will be worth your time if you are playing or consider playing Unholy DK. In this video I'll be touching base the roles of Unholy DK, the rotation, what abilities to use in which order to maximize your pressure, and of course to a combat rune management with a few awesome perks. When getting into Unholy role, let me tell you first of all what we are not. We're not the strongest melee in the game. We're not a pure dot class, we're not a pure pet class, and of course we are not the ranged class, but we're kinda incorporating all of those into one theme, into one spec called Unholy DKs. When I was trying to learn DK back in Rust Village, one of my good friends who actually got me into a PvP, his name is Pure Shield, he actually told me one interesting thing about Unholy DKs. He said that Unholy is like some sort of a machine. It doesn't have any creativity, but how well you can actually manage the class will be dependent totally up to you. Now I know it's a bit abstract, but bear with me. Think about it as Unholy DK. What do we have? We don't have a lot of interrupts. We do not have a spawnable CC. So all the creativity in terms of who is CCing at which specific time, it's not up to us. But what we do have, if we have some sort of a fixed resource ratio, what I mean by that is that if you spend X amount of runes, you're gonna get Y amount of runic power. If you spend Y amount of runic power, you get Z amount of blood tap stacks or runic corruptions. So when you're actually playing Unholy DK, guys, you can actually visualize like you're driving basically a car, because all you have is those runes, that runic power, that blood tap stacks, all of that you incorporate to maximize your pressure. But it's a very like a sort of a fixed machine ratio that you have to be utilizing. So when it comes to playing Unholy, it's a very exciting gameplay because you have 4 different roles that you're switching in and out of in order to maximize your pressure. Think about it, guys. You start off as a dot class, you apply your diseases, and then you go into a melee, you do a couple festering / scourge strikes, and then from there you get a runic power, you become a caster, you take on the role of a caster and you shoot out those death coils. And as soon as you build up those shadow infusion stacks, you're becoming a pet class where you have to manage your pet and you have to enrage your pet or summon another gargoyle. This is what I feel Unholy DK really is. We are warrior / enhanced shaman, where our melee is actually pretty damn powerful, but we cannot melee 100% of the time because we have other things to do in our rotation. And then we take a role of Affliction Lock, where we have a really good dot damage and we have to spread those dots up to maximize our pressure. Once we get runic power, I think we're switching into a Demon Lock, where we have a really decent instant cast damage via death coil spam. And then last but not least, I think once we enrage our pet, have a gargoyle up, we kind of taking role of a BM hunter, where our pets actually do a lot of damage and provide a really good pressure. And so this is why we cannot melee warrior 100% of the time, because we don't have all the melee abilities. This is why we cannot only rely on our dot damage or our cast damage or on our pets in order to win. We have to be incorporating all those 4 different roles in order to maximize our pressure and maximize our gameplay. So when it comes to rotation, your startup rotation usually starts with a Chain of Ice or Icy Touch if you have Chillblains, into a Plague Strike, into a Blood Boil because you want to spread those diseases right away, either Blood Boil or Pestilence, into a Festering Strike, into a Scourge Strike, into actually getting your preliminary necrotics and everything to maximize your pressure output. One last thing I want to talk about it is you have to prioritize everything according to maximizing your necrotics. And believe me, if you have a necrotics at the same time with a pet, at the same time with some really good death coil damage, and you execute, this is where you will be applying the most pressure possible out there. Now let's take a look at it at the actual full screen in terms of how to maximize your pressure. Okay, so let's talk about Unholy Rotation really quickly. So the basic start rotation is actually very simple. You start off with the Chain of Ice on a target into a Plague Strike. If you are spec'd into Chill Blades and Icy Touch Offensive Dispel, you can start with the Icy Touch. Anyway, so Chain of Ice into a Plague Strike, into a Blood Bowl because you want to start spreading those diseases ASAP, into a Festering Strike, into another I would say either Scorch Strike or Death and Decay, and then you have all the procs, Pop Your Activate Trinket, Blood Bowl to spread additional disease, even though you might actually use a Death Rune for it. And this is where the magic starts. This is where you start actually applying your Necros. This is where you're going to be using your Blood Tap stacks to maximize your pressure. This is a startup point for Unholy Decays. This is basically our startup rotation, and after that what you need to do is you need to maximize your switches and maximize your pressure according to your necrotics. Your necrotics is the biggest pressure there is, so what you need to do is you need to maximize all your rolls and everything according to necrotics. And believe me that necrotics combined with a dot cleave pressure with the enraged pet is very deadly. Okay guys, now let's talk about unholy abilities and how to prioritize your rotation according to those abilities. So this is kind of sort of a big chunk of addition to unholy rotation. So for unholy runes, this is a priorities in my opinion. The priorities are the Soul Reaper, if you know you can get it off or you get a feeling that you can get it off. And then it's Enraged Pet, because Enraged Pet actually will provide a lot more pressure than the Scourge Strike or Death and Decay over its time. And then I think that it's a Scourge Strike or Death and Decay. I think for a single target, Scourge Strike is definitely a better choice, but if you have more than one target and you can guarantee somebody having 100% uptime into a Death and Decay, then Death and Decay actually becomes better than a Scourge Strike. For example, if you can guarantee that the class you are switching to will be in Death and Decay at least, let's say, 80 to 90% of the time, then actually Death and Decay becomes better on the priority than Scourge Strike. Otherwise, the Scourge Strike will be more priority. So let's reiterate here. Soul Reaper, Enraged Pet, and then it's a Scourge Strike or Death and Decay. So the Scourge Strike is actually not on the max priority even for Unholy Rune usage. Now let's look at the Death Runes themselves. So before going into anything, let's talk about the Necrotic versus the Scourge Strike for Death Runes. Necrotic on average does 8k damage and a 40k absorption, whereas Scourge Strike only does 9k damage plus 6 to 7k shadow damage, and it's a lot less, but it does benefit from crit a lot more than Necrotic, because I've seen as high as like 35 to 43k Scourge Strike crits, both shadow and physical damage combined, which is not bad. The general rule of thumb, I would say that actually Necrotic takes a priority over Scourge Strike on a few conditions, where if you, let's say, training the mage and you have a Soul Reaper going on the mage, and all you need to do is a couple of Scourge Strikes to put the mage down below 35% or put the target down below 35%, maybe Scourge Strike could be a little bit of better option. Otherwise, I think that 90%, 95% of the time, Necrotic is better than a Scourge Strike for Death Rune usage. But other than that, let's look at the other priorities for Death Runes that you can actually use. So I think that overall they are spread a little bit evenly. Necrotics are the best thing possible for Death Runes, and that is 100% true. But sometimes if you cannot put a Soul Reaper using your Unholy Rune and your killer is CC'd for more than 5 seconds, guess what? Use your Death Rune to apply Soul Reaper. There's no penalty for that. This is where I hate the word rotation, because nothing is set in stone when it comes to Unholy Decays. And last but not least, if you see your enemy team clocked up together and you can actually do a really good Blood Bowl Pestilence, or you have offensive procs and you know that your Blood Bowl will hit on multiple targets, guess what? Just spreading out the dot pressure is worth actually using your Death Rune to Blood Bowl Pestilence, because it will do approximately 30 to 40k damage AoE wise, and also gonna spread your disease. So in that case, actually Blood Boil becomes a little bit better than Necrotic. Not spamming Blood Boil, guys, listen to this, not spamming it, but just using it once or twice. The only time you can be spamming it, it's in RBGs when you actually have a lot of people clustered together. So that's for a Death Rune usage. Last but not least, let's talk about the abilities for Frost and Blood runes and their priorities. For the Blood runes, these are the priorities. either for a single rune usage, you either Blood Bowl or Blood Strike. Blood Strike hits like a noodle poodle, and the only time it's worth using it is only if you need to convert your rune and the healer is CC'd via Scatter, Trap, Polymorphs. Basically, you cannot AoE Blood Boil at that time, so you have to use a Blood Strike to start converting your runes. What you need to do with your blood runes is focus on conversion, and this is where Blood Bowl fits perfectly. Does decent damage, spreads diseases via rolling blood, and also converts your runes into a death runes. For Frost rune usage, it's Icy Touch, Offensive Dispel if there's some kind of high priority ability. For example, Predator Swiftness from a Feral Druids, or for example we have Mage's Shields and you have Offensive Dispel, then Icy Touch kind of becomes a priority, especially in 5.2 when the Icy Touch will convert our Frost runes into a death runes. And then I would say Chain of Ice to Gap Close, Festering to prolong your diseases and to convert your runes, or a Blood Boil. Yes, it's actually very valid to use a Blood Boil on the Frost runes, using a Death Rune Blood Boil on a Frost rune, because it will keep converting the Death Rune into a Death Rune, and it will also actually in fact spread out your disease and do what it has to do. Again, focus on conversion. Our biggest pressure is necrotics, so during that time when you're using a Frost runes, you also need to think and utilize how to proper rotate your runes into maximizing your death runes so you can stack a lot more necrotics. And that's it when it comes to using your abilities for which specific runes. I woke up today hoping to make a video. No, I'm just kidding. But bad news, guys. Guess what? You will run out of runes. You will run out of your resources. It is inevitable. It's the whole Unholy theme. Really high pressure output, different roles incorporating. So you will run out of those runes, because that's what kind of Blizzard wants you to do with the spec. Switching from one role to another role, to a third role, to a fourth role. So you will run out of those. Don't get frustrated. It's a part of the game. This is what kind of pisses me off, because if we're sitting in the blood stance, we are going to be losing quite a good number of runes because of defensive stance. And for warriors, it's going to be the same thing in 5.2, because they will have overpowered, going to be casting rage for them. So in that sense, they think that they're kind of a special and they do not want to run out of resources. But DK has been running out of resources, Unholy DKs, especially in the blood stance, for already like a couple seasons in a row. So I think it's a perfectly natural type of situation where if you want to go a little bit more defensive, you're gonna sacrifice a good portion of your offensive capabilities at the same time. So when you hit that dead zone where you're gonna have your runes on cooldown, or whether you're gonna have your resources on cooldown, what you're gonna do? Consider kiting. This is the most ingenious thing. Consider kiting. What you're gonna do? Try to melee strike a warrior or a rogue? That shit is not worth it, because it doesn't matter. The only thing maybe it matters is for a sudden doom procs, but even that is not that much. It's pretty negligible. So consider cutting a target when you actually have your runes on cooldown, because you're not gonna apply a shit tons of pressure. The second thing is consider switching. And switching with not a death grip. Start walking, getting your happy ass and working towards the healer or towards the other target, especially if it's a ranged, because in that time you're still gonna be waiting for a rune refreshment. So might as well start cutting, start working on your positioning while your runes are on cooldown. It is inevitable. And trust me that the person who can actually minimize his downtime is the best Unholy DK there is, and I'm not actually 100% good on that, but getting a pretty damn good at it, I would say. This is the portion where kind of it's under the radar, where a lot of people don't notice it, is that consider kiting, and most importantly, consider switching, walking towards the next target and switching while you have your runes on cooldown. You're kind of shooting two birds with one stone, because A, you're getting a better positioning, and B, your runes are coming off the cooldown for a really good hard switch at the same time. Now let's quickly look at some minor duel against a warrior to show you guys how to properly incorporate kiting according to your rune CD and management. So I'll be dueling this warrior out here really quickly, and I will be commentating over the duel itself. Since it's a warrior with a tier 1 2.1k experience, I'm gonna only use half of my abilities to make it fair. So anyway, putting my pet here, stunning my pet. Okay, look at this. I'm getting my runes up. Runes are on cooldown. I'm taking a roll of a caster and I'm starting kiting him. Guess what happens in this time? He is taking damage, he cannot charge me, I'm kiting him properly here, and at the same time I'm not allowing him to do anything. Moving my pet, now I'm a pet class, now I can actually start managing my pet properly. Move it out and get back on the warrior. You see, I get my death runes, I have my blood tap stacks, so it's time for me to actually assume a role of a, so to say, a melee decay. This is where I'm going to be applying auto break into Soul Reaper, into actually necrotic stacks, and I'm killing this warrior. During this duel, this is a 2.1k experienced warrior. Let me show you his statistics really quickly. Sorry, it's lagging a little bit. So he said he's 2.1k in the trade chat. Now let's take a look if he's really 2.1k. No, he's not. No, he's not. Okay, he's 1738. I'm sorry guys, my bad. He said he's 2.1k this season. Apparently it wasn't the case. But anyway, regardless of that, during this duel, I haven't used any of my cooldowns. Except I used IBF and Desecrated Ground to get out of his stuns. I haven't used my Gargoyle, I haven't used my Pet Sack, I haven't used my Activate Trinket, my Empowering Weapon, nothing. I just incorporate what I just been telling you guys around. Wait, when your runes on the cooldown, kite them. When your runes are off cooldown, get in melee. And switching off and on like that. So, guys, everybody, thanks for watching, thanks for taking your time watching this guide video. I hope it's gonna help you guys out a lot. I have one favor to ask. Follow me on Facebook so you will find out when I'm gonna be putting out more content, and I will be streaming I'm actually streaming quite often, at least 3 to 4 times a week. So go my Twitch and follow my Twitch, guys. Everybody, thank you for watching this video, and до свидания, my friends.